All right, so just to review where we kind of left off, we went over simple interest, and now we're looking at compound interest equations. There's two different kinds that we use. There's two different equations, and how we decide if we're going to use them is if it's a single sum question or multiple sum question. So again, we'll look at the first one first. This is for single sum equation. If the question says John invests $1,000 and it compounds every year, but he only invested the money one time, he only put the money into the account once, then we use single sum. Okay, so here's an example of single sum, and here's how it would look to solve. Again, you just have to follow order of operations, and it's pretty straightforward. So this is single sum. Here's what the multiple sum or multiple investment equation looks like. So again, we've still got the same, a lot of the same variables. We've got our principal, we've got rate, we've got time, we've got how many times it's compounded, etc., etc. So again, this one says $1,000 invested every year. So we know, hey, this person's putting $1,000 in multiple times. It's not just happening once, it's happening a few times. So you can pause and do this practice question if you want to get some practice with using this equation just to make sure you get the questions right. This just kind of shows, compound interest. You want to have compound interest when you can, because it's going to give you interest on top of interest, which is going to be better for you in the long run. Okay, so to make the most of your money, you want to use compound interest, not just simple interest. Here's just some charts that show you over time. So if we invested our money for 50 years, here's what it could grow into, as opposed to, if we just let it sit for a few years. So again, the longer you let your money sit, the better interest rate you use, the better it's going to be for you. So that time value of money, these three parts: time, money, and interest rate. Okay, here's some more sample problems that you can work on if you need some more practice. And so now we're going to move to kind of the second part of this unit, where we're going to talk about the different savings tools that you can use. And there's 5 different ones that we're going to talk about. So again, you really want to use that note sheet, the investing/savings note sheet, and take little notes on all these different tools that we talk about. We're going to talk about checking account, savings account, money market account, certificate of deposit, and then savings bonds. So through this module, you're going to be able to read and understand and be able to differentiate the different savings tools from each other. Okay. Before we get into them, we'll talk about some of the criteria that we'll use to differentiate or compare these different tools to each other. So when we talk about saving and investing, something that's going to come up is this idea of risk. Risk is when you don't know what might happen. You might have something good happen, you might have something bad happen. Risk happens every day in life. With savings tools, they are very, very low risk, so you know your money is going to be there and it's going to grow. Some of the things that we'll use to compare savings and investing tools is we'll use liquidity, we'll use risk, we'll use minimum amounts that you can invest, and we'll kind of, we'll look at these different tools and we'll decide which one's going to be best for us based on those criteria. Also with savings tools, the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation, or the FDIC, insures all savings accounts that are FDIC insured, which is most banks, most high-profile banks and institutions. They will insure you up to $250,000 per account just for saving your money with them. So if anybody has more than $250,000 in a savings account, which I'll assume probably most of us don't, you will be insured. If your money gets stolen, lost, something happens, you will get your money back. So that's why savings tools are so safe. They're very low risk, as opposed to if you invest your money in a stock that goes bad, there's nothing there saving you. There's nothing saying, oh yeah, we insured your money for you. So savings tools are going to be very, very safe. All right, so we'll start off with checking account. This is the most liquid of all the savings tools. Most of you probably have or have heard of a checking account through your bank. What a checking account does is it allows you to pretty much make purchases with this account with your debit card or to write out checks. So some of the pros and cons, some of the pros are that obviously you can use this account to make purchases. It's easy to transfer money back and forth. It's very liquid. And some of the downfalls or some of the cons is that checking accounts are almost never interest earning. So you're not going to earn any interest for saving your money with them. And if you do, it's going to be very, very, very low. So again, you can access these accounts very easily. You can write checks. You can go to ATMs all around the world. You can check your balance through these ATMs. You can use debit cards. You can write checks. Most of the time, they'll have online banking accounts where you can transfer funds. You can make payments using an app, everything like that. With ATMs, though, one of the cons with ATMs is that most of the time they'll charge you a fee to take money out of an ATM. So let's say you go to a gas station and you want to take $20 out of an ATM. They'll usually charge you like $23. So they'll charge you $3 just as a service fee for using their ATM. But other than that, checking accounts, very accessible, very easy to use. Sometimes they'll have minimum balance requirements. Sometimes they'll charge you, again, for using an ATM or something like that. But for the most part, checking accounts are very safe to use. They just don't earn any interest. You're just going to use it to make purchases. Next up to that is the savings account. Your savings account is a little bit less liquid than your checking account. So a savings account is what you're going to use to save your money when you're not spending it. So if you know, let's say you get your paycheck for $100, you know you're going to spend 50 of that. So you put the first 50 in your checking account so you can go to the movies, you can go get gas, and the other 50 you're going to put into a savings account. Savings accounts, like I said, are a little bit less liquid, so you have to do a little bit more to get your money out, but they're going to earn interest, and that's the big perk with a savings account. Sometimes you'll earn compound interest, sometimes you'll earn simple interest. It just depends on the bank and the account type that you have. So again, just the checking account is more liquid because there's no card that you can get to make purchases with a savings account. You have to go to the bank or an ATM to withdraw money from a savings account. So a little bit less liquid than checking accounts. But again, they earn interest. So you want to save your money in a savings account so that you can earn that interest. The next type of account is a money market deposit account. What a money market deposit account is it's a government insured account that most banks offer. With money market accounts, you're usually going to have a minimum balance that you have to put into the account. So a money market account is a lot like a savings account, but it's less liquid. So once you put your money there, you're going to leave it there and you're not going to be able to withdraw it as easy. And when it says they usually have tiered accounts or tiered interest rates, what that means is that the more money you put in or the more money that you save, the better interest rate they'll give you. So with most accounts, they'll say if you put in $0 to $5,000, we'll give you 3% interest rate. If you put in $5,000 to $10,000, we'll give you a 10% interest rate or something like that. Because they want more people to invest more money or to save more money with them. And if you do, they'll give you a better interest rate. So money market deposit accounts, they typically will give you a higher interest rate than savings accounts will. But then the trade-off is that your money is not as easy to access. So it's going to be a little bit less liquid. So for example, with tiered accounts, the more money you put in, the better interest rate you're going to get. Go back here real quick. So like usually with a money market account, they'll limit how many times you can access your money. They'll say, okay, you can only write checks. You can only write, 10 checks per year or 2 checks per month from this account because they want to keep that money in the account so that they can lend it out to other people. And again, you usually have a minimum amount required with a money market account. So you can't just put however much you want in. They'll tell you, hey, you have to put at least 1,000 or 2,000 or 5,000 or whatever it is. Next is a certificate of deposit. CDs, again, as we go down this list, get even less liquid. So a CD will really restrict the access that you have to these funds. It's another type of savings account that you'll put your money in and then you'll have to leave it there for a certain amount of time until what's called the maturity date. at the maturity date, you can take your money out and you get the interest that you've earned. So again, your money is less liquid in this kind of account, so you're going to leave it for a longer time, but then your interest rate is going to be a little bit higher. So depending on which bank you go to, what type of account, how long you leave it in, they'll decide what your interest rate's going to be. But with the CD, once you put your money in, it's kind of locked in there. Let's say if you wanted to save your money with a CD that said for 3 years you had to leave your money in there. Once you've put that $1,000 in, you can't get it back out until the end of your maturity date. Otherwise, they won't give you any interest, and you'll usually have to pay fees and things like that. So again, with CDs, less liquid than all the accounts we've talked about so far. And if you withdraw before the end of your time period, they're usually going to give you some type of a fee. So you don't want to withdraw your money. And they'll sometimes have minimum deposits as well. But again, with all these savings accounts, they're very low risk. So if you follow what they want and they say, hey, 3 years, leave this money here, you do it, it's safe, it's insured, you know you're going to get your money back, and so you'll be fine. And then the last type of account we'll talk about is a savings bond. Savings bonds are purchased from the United States government, and it's kind of like a loan, but it's from the government. So for instance, if I wanted to buy a savings bond from the government, I would, let's say, buy it for $500. Now the government will turn around and they'll use that $500 to build new roads, improve some of the infrastructure, whatever they want to do with it. And then in 10, 15, 20 years, I will get my $500 back plus the interest that I earned on top of it. So usually with the type of bonds that we'll talk about, they'll double in their investment. So for instance, if I invest $50, I'll get $100 out of this savings bond at the end. With savings bonds, they're very safe since they're government issued, they're government insured, but they're not going to be very, very high interest rates. They're going to be relatively low. So it's the least liquid of all savings tools because once you've bought your savings bond, you can't get your money back until it's done, until the maturity date. So you can't write a check out of a savings bond. You can't go to the store and give somebody a savings bond. Your money's kind of stuck until either the maturity date or you're paid back or whatever happens with your bond. Some of you might have savings bonds in your name. Sometimes grandparents or parents will buy a savings bond for you when you're a baby and when you're born, because savings bonds generally take 10, 15, 20 years to mature. So again, they're pretty low interest rate, but they're very safe. They're government insured, so you're going to get your money out of it. They just don't grow very, very quickly. So safe, secure, affordable. You can purchase them from pretty cheap, $25 all the way up to $10,000 or more dollars. And usually another perk of them is that they're tax exempt. Since you're giving your money to the government, they won't tax you on them. So there are some perks of using savings bond. So again, when you look at all these different types of accounts, you need to, just like when you go to a store and you decide what kind of shoes you want to buy, you need to decide which account is going to be right for you based on what's the liquidity, how much is it going to grow, is it safe, is it secure, how long do I have to leave it in there for. And when you use all those criteria to decide, that'll help lead you to your choice. So if you say, hey, I need to be able to make purchases really quickly and I need to be able to move money around, you might want to go with the checking or savings account. If you say, hey, I don't need this money, I want to earn a little bit of money, but I don't need it for 5, 10 years, maybe you want to look at a certificate of deposit or a savings bond. It all depends on where you're at in your life and what your needs are. So here's a good chart to kind of visualize how all these accounts look based on interest rates and based on liquidity. So as you can see, you kind of have this trade-off between if your account is going to be liquid, you're probably not going to earn much interest on it. If you can't touch your money for a while, you're probably going to earn a little bit higher interest rate. So you might want to pause it and really make sure that you understand this part of the video right here. So again, you need to kind of decide what's going to be right for you based on what you need. Do you need higher interest? Do you need more liquidity? And go decide on the savings tools using that kind of criteria.